This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. This week I have been living my life through 1 Samuel chapter 2, 30 and 31. And when I say that, I'm not saying I'm going in and picking a verse and living my life through it. I'm saying that these are the verses, or this is the book in the Bible that I've been given. And as each week I'm going through my life, really each day, I'm literally living my life through these verses and understanding what I'm going through and really using this in my healing. And I think for a lot of people, maybe not a lot, maybe just the people I know, they use this book as an end all be all, but it really is a tool. It's a guide. It's instructions to help you get through this life while we're here. And I think we're all different people. And so we interpret things differently. We feel things differently. We understand things differently. So I don't think this book is a one size fits all. This is what it says. This is what it means. This is what you should do. I think this book, this is why it's so personal. This is why you're supposed to spend time in it, not to memorize it, not to be able to quote the scriptures, but spend time in it to see where you are in your life and what sections in it are helping you for where you are right now. And it's a way to connect with God and understand some of the things like, oh, I'm not the only one that's been through this. Other people before me have been through this. And I guess for me, a person without parents and a person who really doesn't have a lot of guidance in their life, I've kind of been on my own for a while, for a long while, since the age of 16. I think that this Bible is something that allows me to go, oh, okay, God, someone else has been through this. Let me read this story a little bit and let me see where it feels in my life. Let me see what it's happening so I can kind of understand what's going on in my life and know that I'm not alone. I haven't been alone. There were people in this book a long time before me. Because if you think of this section with King David and King Saul, this is history. So there are people before me that have been through this, and I think that allows me to understand it a little better and understand myself a little better. So as I'm going through 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 30 and 31, and I'm not going to read it, and as you can probably see, this podcast has taken different turns because I'm just listening to God and what I'm supposed to be doing. And in my life, change has been very hard for me. And I think this is one of the things God is teaching me is to be able to change, to be able to listen and understand when I need to pivot and when I need to change. This episode's going to be a little different. And the next episode may be different from that. I'm not really sure. I'm just following what God is calling me to do. In the past verses of 1 Samuel, God sent a prophet, an unnamed man, to Eli. And he reminds Eli, hey, I put you in charge. I gave you this. I entrusted this leadership to you. And God wasn't just entrusting Eli with giving the word. God was entrusting Eli with his people, with the people of Israel. And that was important. And Eli, yes, took his priesthood seriously and he did the right things, but his kids, those ones after him, didn't. But Eli didn't stop them. He didn't say, yo, hey, kiddos, we're not doing what God has entrusted us to do. He let them run amok. He let them do whatever they wanted to do and didn't stop them. He kind of like stayed hidden in a corner. He didn't want to face God, nor did he want to face his kids. In literal terms, this is kind of what happened. And so God gave Eli the time to correct it, right? Because we have free will. And this was part of Eli's free will. He did right by God. He did what he was supposed to, but his kids didn't. And so Eli had free will. Is he going to stand up to his kids who are priests who were given this leadership and say, this is not what we do? He set aside and let them be corrupt and let them do things that they shouldn't have been doing. And finally, God's like, I've had enough. I've let this go on long enough. So now I got to step in. And God said, I'm going to have to pull back on this. I'm going to have to take this away. And in these verses, God says, those who honor me, I will honor, but those who despise me will be lightly esteemed. And so God is saying, hey, Eli, I got to take your priesthood away. You've had it through your lineage. But you couldn't control, you couldn't stay in charge, and your kids didn't want to do these things. So now I got to remove it. There's consequences to everything that we do in life. So for me to honor God means to live in integrity with what I've been entrusted with. The first thing in my life that God entrusted me with was myself. God entrusted me with me. And God made me this very authentic, loving, deep person. And I didn't honor that authenticity. I knew growing up how different I was. In fact, I think that if you really are honest with yourself, everybody's different. Everyone is completely different. But we work so hard to fit in. We work so hard to try to have people like us, to try to be part of the norm. But God didn't make us that way. And for me, not for anyone else, for me, this is where I think I lost my relationship with God because I couldn't be my authentic self. And even when I tried, I wasn't strong enough to continue because I didn't fit in. Just like Eli couldn't control his sons or even set them down and say, hey, boys, this is not what we're here for. Do you understand the importance of what God gave us? Do you understand the severity of what we're doing? Do you understand how God looks at us? What God has entrusted us with? God entrusted us with people. God entrusted us with leadership. If Eli could have thought who he was really in life, like if you had to put a picture to it, God was the chief executive officer and he made Eli his chief operating officer. And Eli's kids never had to worry about a job ever again because they were going to be chief operating officers for God for every line down. And Eli's sons didn't see the importance of that. They didn't see the magnificence of that. But it's the same for us. We are the same as Eli's sons. We are the same as Eli. We are God's COO in our life. And God made us exactly how we are in God's image. And God gave us our purpose. God gave us our quirks. God gave us our authenticity and all these things that are different about us. But as we grow up, we want to fit in so bad. We want to have friends so bad. We don't want people to see our differences that we throw away. We dishonor what God gave us to fit in. And I did that my whole life, even up until here recently. Because even when I started this podcast, when God gave me the vision, and man, that sounds so weird to say, God gave me the vision. But I bet if you think about it, there have been visions that you've had and you've passed them off because you didn't know what they were, or there's no way God could be talking to me. I know that because that's what I thought. There's no way the creator of the universe could be talking to me. And so when God gave me this vision, and I did laugh it off, but then I thought, wait a minute, what if? What if? What if that was correct? And so as I put it off, because I did, and then I started to get a little more serious about it because the weight of it came to me. The weight of it was in my chest and in my stomach. And I started to work on it. I started to work on it as if it was going to be this big, humongous thing. I started to work on it as if it was going to be something that was like all the rest of these podcasts, all the rest of these video casts. And so I started talking to people about it. And the one thing that I didn't realize back then that I understand now is when you bring different people into your life and into the conversations that you and God are having, they start to put their input. And when they put their input, you start listening to them more than you were listening to God, because how could God really be talking to me? How could that really be accurate? And then you start doubting because this person over here is giving you their ideas and they're physically in front of you. You can feel them, touch them, see them. Maybe not for you, but for me, because I'm that type of a person. And again, my faith was very new. In my whole life, I've doubted myself. I've doubted my leadership. I've doubted who God created me to be here on this earth. Because really, me, God? Really, me? So when I started talking to people and doing the research, and people were saying, you have to do video. And man, I really didn't like that idea because it takes away from what I'm doing, right? Because then I worry about that video. I worry about, did I just pick my nose? Did I scratch my face? What am I doing? How am I doing it? And so I started with video, and I started with this nice little setup. And in fact, I wasn't even going to do it in my apartment because I think the words I used was, God said we're not doing it janky. God didn't say that. Carrie Joe said that because I saw what everybody else was doing. I saw what the norm was, and that's what I needed to do. God just said, start the podcast. That's it. I'll lead you through it. God said, start the podcast. God never said I had to have a great setup. So I visited podcast studios and talked to them, and they were great and wonderful, but I realized it was way out of my budget. And so I set it up here and had the shelves and had the background and everything and started with video. And man, it was uncomfortable. because I was worried about what physically I was doing rather than the messages God was asking me to put out. In fact, I started out with trauma. I didn't realize God was telling me I needed to tell my testimony, that telling how God brought me back to what happened in my life to where I was going was my testimony. I thought I was supposed to be telling people's trauma stories, but really what it is, I thought I was giving people a platform to tell their stories because I could fix them, because I'm a fixer. And if I give that platform and let you get it all out, then I can fix it for you. God wasn't asking me to do that. God was asking me to do this right here, what I'm doing right now. And in fact, it pivoted when I started doing the verses with the literal and symbolic, because that was how I was growing in my understanding. I needed that. I needed to know the literal why of it, of the verse, and I needed to know the symbolic of it, because I needed to know more than just the words on the pages, because I think people just yell out the words on the pages and we're supposed to follow, but I didn't understand that. That didn't work for me. I couldn't follow that. So then I had to get a little deeper and go into the symbolic meaning of it. But really, what I was working on is understanding it in my life and my life alone. Because what you're going through in your life is not the same as what I'm going through in my life. And so I'm going to use this verse differently, just like you would use this verse differently. I guess that's why church doesn't really make sense to me, because there's this person up on this stage yelling at me and telling me these verses. But what if those verses and what that person is yelling is what they're going through in their life or what they've been through in their life? Is that really going to work for me? Is that really going to resonate with me? I don't know, because these are things I'm having to learn on my own. And I don't need a church to have a relationship with God. A church really is a place for you to fellowship with people. That's what it was intended for. So I don't need to have a church for a relationship with God. I can have a relationship with God right here in my apartment. I can have a relationship with God at the park. I have a relationship with God when I go to the coffee shop. I have a relationship with God everywhere I go because God is inside me. God is with me always. So I don't have to show up one day a week at church to show that I have a relationship with God. Starting this podcast and going through these transitions and these changes, it was God allowing me to interpret and understand things on my own. Because I have no idea where I'm going with this. I have no idea where this podcast is heading. But it's not just where it's heading, it's the journey and the learning along the way. And that's what I've done as I've started this podcast one way and changed it several different ways. It's growing in my relationship with God. It's growing in my understanding. It's growing in my understanding of myself. And it's growing into my authenticity. Because, see, I lost myself a long time ago when I wouldn't honor what God had created me to be. Growing up, I knew I was a little different. I knew I felt deeply. I knew that my heart overflowed in abundance of feelings. And I never sat down and talked to anyone about it. And I didn't know what to do with the feelings. I just knew they were a lot. And when I had friends in my life and family in my life, I knew I felt deeply for them. In fact, I would write little poems or write letters. I've always been a letter writer or a card writer. And they were very deep. And I know some people were like, wait, what? But that's how I got my feelings out, because I felt so deeply about these people in my life. But then I started to think that maybe me feeling deeply was wrong, or that it was different, or that it was weird. And so I started using my humor to mask who I really was. God gave me this great sense of humor and this smart mouth and this witty way about myself. And I'm quick with it. And God gave me that. And I'm so appreciative. Or maybe God didn't give it to me. Maybe I developed it myself as a deterrent from my deep feelings. I don't know. But I started using that humor to mask everything. And I started not feeling so deeply. Everything was surface, and I just allowed it to be that way. And every now and again, someone would come in my life and I would feel for them and I would show them who I truly was. And sometimes they would accept me and sometimes they wouldn't. And I would go back to being that funny self with the mask. So then that way I could still have that person in my life. And man, I made a lot of friends and had a lot of people in my life, but throughout my life, I don't think there were that many people who really knew who I was, who really knew how deep I felt, who really knew this heart. Because honestly, if I have to really say who I am a very, very deep person. I am someone who feels deeply. I am someone who wants to talk intensely. Even when we're even talking about music, I feel the words. The music is great. The melody, the beat is great, but I feel the words. I understand them. They pierce deep into my heart and I feel them. And so I stopped being that deep person. That is part of that authenticity that I wasn't honoring. In this verse, God says, I got to take it away. But really, God didn't take anything away from me. It was always there. I took it away from myself. And when I took away my authenticity, when I took away who I was, my joy was gone, my peace was gone, my clarity was gone, my energy was gone, my connection was gone. Not because God was punishing me, but because that misalignment drains you. That misalignment with yourself drains who you really are. If you think of it like a battery, who we are energizes us. It lifts us. Our connection with God, our connection with ourselves, it energizes us. It lifts us. It makes us who we are. And when we're not who we are, our energy just drains out. Just like when I was on camera for this podcast, I would be so drained. I couldn't relax. My body was tense. My muscles were tight. I didn't feel good. When I stopped being on camera, I was so full of energy, so full of life, so full of love and who I was that it energized me. It gave me what I needed. So I wasn't dishonoring God, but I was surviving, fitting in. And now I've learned that I don't have to do any of that. Because when I am authentically me, I am connected to God. I am connected to Source. I am connected to myself. And that alone brings me the energy that I need. And so I quit dishonoring myself. I quit dishonoring God by being something that I wasn't. And that's throughout my whole life. I'm just giving this podcast as an example. But I stopped dishonoring God and dishonoring myself and said, you know what? I'm going to do what feels right for me. I'm going to do what I need to do for me so that way I can hear God. Because when I was doing that podcast on video, I couldn't hear God the way that I had heard God before. And that alone upset me. That alone made me not feel good about what I was doing. And as soon as that camera went off, and as soon as I started doing it how I needed to do it for me, I felt so much better, and I felt God, and I felt aligned within myself and aligned with God. And so I knew that I had made the right decision today. Today, when starting this episode, because usually what I do is I will write a lot of it out and then wing it, if you will, from what I wrote out. But today, God said, nope, we're not writing anything out. We're just going to speak from the heart because this is what I created you for. This is what you're best at. And I said, really, God, you picked me to do this? Like me? Why would you pick me? What about me? And God said, why wouldn't I pick you? Why wouldn't I pick you? Because it wasn't God who was doubting me. It was me doubting me. I was dishonoring what God gave me. I was dishonoring that God could even choose me. But I was already chosen. I've been chosen. I'm the one that didn't think I was good enough. And so today, when I sat down to write this episode out, God said, no, we're not writing anything out. And I said, wait, what? We're not writing anything out. And God said, no, we're not writing anything out. We're going to wing it. And however it comes out, it comes out. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. Maybe people listen. Maybe people don't listen. Whatever it may be is how it's going to be. That's how you're going to honor me, because we're growing. We're learning, and we're not staying in the same space. And my heart started to beat. I started to get anxious and I started to get nervous. And I said, God, but look how I'm feeling. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling nervous. I don't know if this is right. But fear and excitement are just inches from each other. That feeling is just 1 inch from each other. So is it fear or was it excitement? Is it fear of not doing what I'm really supposed to be doing because who will accept it? Who will want it? Who will think I'm good enough to say these things? Or is it excitement that I'm finally being authentically myself and doing what God created me to do? And the only way to know is to do it. And maybe today this seemed like a bunch of rambling, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to re-record it. All I know is today I'm following what God asked me to do. And that was to go out of my comfort zone, not to plan, not to write, but just create and just do and let it stand just as it is. I hope if you're listening today, you think back to when you started to change just to fit in, that you think back to what you put aside so that you could be accepted in the circles that you're in the world that you're living in. And you ask yourself if what you were honoring was yourself or fitting into a place that you really don't even belong in. Because when you walk in to that place, into that friend group, into that job, into that circle, into that whatever it is, and you feel your chest tighten and you feel kind of a sunken feeling you ask yourself, do I even belong here? Why am I doing this? What is it that I gave up of myself to fit in here, to have this job, to have these friends, to have this partner? What mask am I wearing so that I can fit in here? And maybe kind of like me, you'll think back when you were a kid and realized the things that you really liked about yourself that you gave up. Like for me, how deep I feel, how in depth I am, how I like to ponder about things and really talk about them. I get on people's nerves because I like to talk about things so much. But I know that me understanding these verses and me understanding my authenticity and my alignment with God, I know that I'm finally finding who I am, where I am, why I'm this way, and why God made me this way. I'm able to have that real relationship with myself and with God. So I wonder if you really remember who you are, if things in your life would really change, because who you are now is not really your authentic self, is not really the person God created you to be.